Awesome. Oh, that's a good look. Welcome, welcome. I haven't done one of these back porch chats in a while. So I was thinking about some stuff today. And, these back deck chats, for those who are catching this in the moment or afterwards, I see them as this opportunity for me to talk about something that I'm thinking about and giving me a chance to really clarify. So I'm working stuff out while I do these back deck chats. So bear with me for a bit. I've been thinking a lot about the burden of stress. So I talk about the burden of stress. I've talked about it quite a bit. And I'll do a proper video one day about it. And I'll talk about it and I'll announce it so that it's not a surprise. Heidi ho. So talking about the burden of stress and how there is so much stress right now that adds to so much, right? This is the Coles Note version. There's the external stress, there's internal stress, and there is emotional stress. And all three are a little bit different. So the external stress is the stuff you can't control, for sure. You're living in the middle of a pandemic, regardless of which side you're on. You have to pay the mortgage. How is the mortgage payment going to happen this month? Will you still have a job tomorrow? The external stresses can also be stuff like toxins in our environment, for sure. Toxins in our food, toxins in our cleaners that we have at home. Yeah, that's the external stuff. Kind of some stuff I suppose you could partially control, but a lot of it is outside of your control. Then there's the internal stress. So internal stress, I look at it as stuff that's not working well in your body. Can you digest well? No? Internal stress. If you're having a hard time balancing blood sugars, totally internal stress. If your hormones are out of balance, oh hi, that is totally the internal stress going on high alert. Internal stress can also be if you have a chronic disease. Internal stress can also be if something biochemically isn't happening well in the body and it's not working the way it should. Let me rephrase that. Your body is going to be supporting you to work well all the time, and maybe it's just using an imbalance or something not working well in that internal stress burden to let you know something's up. Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. Then there's the emotional stress, and emotional stress is the really obvious stuff like worries, anxiety, and mood stuff, if you struggle with mood stuff. But it can also be emotional stuff like it's a hard time with your partner right now, your current sweetheart. Could be a tumultuous relationship with a family member. Lives in your house, doesn't live in your house. Maybe you're also caring for elders who are either in your care or living in long-term care, where you are one of the main people organizing their care. Or somebody struggling with some health stuff. Like maybe you have a kid who needs like 6 doctor's appointments per month. Like, how is that not an emotional burden, right? And not that it adds to the emotional stress. So whether it's external stress, internal stress, or emotional stress, all of those 3 levels add up to what I'm calling the burden of stress. And the burden of stress triggers the stress response in the body. Doesn't matter if it's because of a mortgage payment, because you have a chronic disease, because your mom is going in for an operation next week, it doesn't matter, right? All of these are like real scenarios, right, Max? My dog is making noise next to me. So all of these add up to that burden of stress. And that burden of stress starts to build up. And when you start working with nutrition or with a nutritional consultant like me, for example, I start to add to that stress level. Because all of a sudden you're introducing some new ideas. And adding the new... Are you going to make it? Like, what's happening, Max? He's like half sneezing. He's such an old man dog. I love him. But yeah, so when you have this burden of stress that's going on in the body, it doesn't matter if it's external, internal, or that emotional stress, you're feeling it in the body. All of those together are tripping that stress response in the body. Yeah, if you can't digest well, you're tripping the stress response in the body. If you're struggling with emotional stability because there's an uncertainty somewhere in your life, you're tripping that stress response for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So when you start working with a holistic nutrition practitioner and she starts to give you ideas on how to work with some of these food ideas, what do you think it's going to do? Well, it's adding to the burden of stress. God, I struggle with that piece. I super struggle with it. I super struggle with it because I know these are good ideas. I know they help reduce that internal burden of stress. But I know they're also adding to the emotional piece of things. And they're asking you to shift and change how you do some things. And sometimes in the routine of how you get dinner on the table, by picking up dinner at the grocery store on the way home, by getting takeout 4 out of 7 nights a week, because that's just way easier, we have to shift. And the shift itself adds another layer of stress. And I'm really, really struggling with that right now. I'm struggling with it because I know of some specific clients of mine right now, and if this is you, honey, I got your back. Reach out and talk to me. That's all I want to say, because we did something wrong somewhere. I tripped something and I didn't read the signs well, and I'm not perfect. I need to figure out what's going to work for you, the pace that's going to work for you, and together we have to figure out what works for you. And that really actually means you have to become a participant in it. That's actually part of the work. You can't just be the receiver of handouts and recipes and think that it's going to magically happen. Fuck no. Excuse my language. But no, it won't. Because it requires for you to say yes to yourself. And while that might sound a little bit cheesy, I was thinking today how that is such a hard piece. For example, it was 11:30 and I was hungry. I was hungry for lunch. And I thought, oh, I'm right in the middle of putting things together for a class. Why do I have to break and go eat lunch? Oh, food. Bleh. Like, who's with me? Anybody else feel that? So then I started cursing the whole, God dang, why do I have to eat? Why do we have to feed ourselves? This is so dumb. And I had that tape going on in my head. And then I thought, oh, I bet you I'm not the only one who feels this way with meals sometimes. Right? Like, I see lots of hearts come through, so I know I'm not the only one. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I can't even handle it. So I did what we Simmons people do. I went to the bathroom to escape and to just veg out for 30 seconds. That is what my family does. We go to the bathroom and we lock ourselves in. We're like, I don't know what to do. Oh, zone out. And as I was zoning out, I was like, oh, it can be a stressor. I have to eat. Like, I have to eat. Like, we all have to eat. You have to fuel your car. You have to fuel your body. I understand the science of it. I know the metabolic balance piece of it. I understand the if you don't eat piece, what happens and repercussions down the line. I totally get all that. But in that moment, lunch, schmunch. And then I thought, oh, I just feel like I have too much. I just feel like I have too much to do. My to-do list, 18 tabs open in my brain. Trying to figure out my solo stuff, trying to figure out my mom's stuff, trying to figure out I kind of run the household stuff, trying to run the book stuff with Histamine Haven, trying to figure out all of these pieces and how I'm supposed to attain all of those and make lunch for myself. Well, obviously, if I don't eat lunch, there's no Luca that's going to function in the afternoon. I know that. But in that moment, I was like, wait a second. Making food, you can see it one of two ways. You can struggle with it and go, oh, God, yet another meal I have to make. And I'm not going to lie, that happens. And it's real, and it's a true feeling. What if you also take a step, I say this all the time, take a step away, move around to the other side and come at it from the other point of view? What does that look like? Oh. Hang on. I've been so busy this morning running 18 tabs, trying to tend to this and this and this. 3 of those things are still open because I haven't put the completed piece. So I'm having to juggle all these pieces and I'm feeling exhausted. Here was the perfect opportunity to break away from that, turn it off for an hour, go into the kitchen, make lunch, and take time to chill. And it was the best thing. It was the best thing for me. It was the best thing to resettle my hormones, my brain, my blood sugars, my metabolism, all the other pieces. Food is not separate from you. Food and preparing food and making meals is actually you reintegrating into nature. How we've outsourced so much of our work these days, and I understand why, but we've outsourced so much of what we do to others, to providers. We pick up supper on the way home. Oh my God, I totally grabbed breakfast through the drive-through this week because I didn't have enough time to even make breakfast, because I had to make 2 meals for a kid and get her to school and then have a shower and arrange for the electrician and set up a podcast and get all this stuff for the video I was doing later that day, and like my brain exploded. So I went to the drive-through. Totally did. It was delicious. I loved it. Also, if that's happening on the regular, there's an imbalance somewhere. I'm not against going through the drive-through. I'm not the one that's going to tell you not to. I'll tell you, maybe if you're doing it often, how does that feel? Do you want to stop? Oh, I can help you with that if you want. Because here's the deal. When you take on the job of nourishing yourself and nourishing others at your table, it doesn't matter. Even if it's just you, even if it's for someone else, it doesn't matter. When you take the job of making a meal, you're actively participating in the energetics of being a human. And that sounds grandiose and kind of precious. And I super mean it on a practical level. Today, when I didn't want to make lunch at 11:30, cursing the fact that I had to put pause on all my tabs open in my brain, with the added stress of, will I even remember which tabs were open and at which stage I was at in those 4 programs, things that I've got on the go, all happening at the same time? Too bad. I can hardly do it without lunch. Imagine the longer I go without lunch. So I stopped and I made lunch. I turned off all my devices. I stopped. I really actually stopped. And making food was the medicine. Yeah, I fed myself, and yeah, I had a really delicious lunch, and there was protein, and there were carbs, and there was good fats, and I made sure it was balanced, and it was real food, and blah, 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 blah. Who cares? It was the making of the food that was the medicine today. It was the act of actually stopping and saying, no, this counts. This requires my attention. It requires me not to have someone's IGTV video on while I'm trying to do things. It requires me making the food, participating in the food, knowing when the food is cooked and ready and done and what kind of flavors will work with it. And that is part of nourishment. Yeah, you feed your cells of your body. You feed your organs. You nourish so that you can do the biochemistry that the body needs. Sure, yeah, of course. You eat for the bugs of your gut. Okay. You eat because it brings people together. But I'm slowly discovering that food is there for a 4th reason. And that reason is one that remains invisible because it is work that has traditionally been picked up by women. Yeah, I'm bringing the political thing to this. Making food is often taken for granted. It is often outsourced to low-paying wages or to somebody who's doing it for free. Often. Not all the time, but often. And the person who tends to make a lot of meals tends to be the person who continues to make meals. And I'm tying gender to it because traditionally that's who's been making it. Gender schmender, I don't really care who's making dinner in your house. I know that for that person, it is the 4th reason we eat. Making food is an act of the person who's cooking it to integrate themselves into the natural world and become a part of what it takes to make this earth work, to utilize her gifts, and to nourish the people at our table. And that is a 4th reason why I love food so much and want to highlight the fact that we've forgotten this 4th reason. This 4th reason for food helps on an extra level that we can't even measure yet to tie in the natural world with the existence of those people at our table. And it serves as a time for we humans to turn off the 18 browsers open and leave just the job of making food on the table. That's the only thing we need to tend to in that moment. And that is medicine in and of itself. Sounds philosophical, sounds hoo-ha and in the air, and can you even grasp it and understand what it means? And it might mean something different for each person, but just something to think about. Every time you pick up a roast chicken at the grocery store, somebody spent time putting that together. Every time you put together a bag of salad, open up a little thing of dressing and put it in, there is somebody who grew that lettuce. There's somebody who harvested that lettuce. There is a person who developed the machine that washed the lettuce. There's somebody who trucked that lettuce to your store. There's somebody who put it out in the store. And there is you that picked it up and put it in your grocery store, and somebody who checked you out. Please, I hope it was a person and not a machine. Can we stop automating everything? Or slow down on it anyway. I know I'm not against automation, but when we start to eradicate people from the workforce, there's a problem. Anyway, there were so many people involved in getting that bag of salad to the table. And the person who's preparing the meals is the last piece in that equation of putting together something and bringing it to the table. And I seriously think we have lost the wisdom in all of the inclusion of the people around there. You are knitting yourself into the web of humanity. So furthermore, here's another way that food brings people together. Something to think about. Take time to make food. It's really worth it. Even if you approach it begrudgingly. I do. Not all the time, but on busy days I do. And then I realize the gift that it is. And then if you can, go eat it on your back porch where the birds are singing, because it's the best. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, everybody.